Hello, hello. I'm Strider, your host here at Author in the Headlights. And thank you for joining us today. And before we get sidetracked, if you could just go down to that right-hand corner, if you happen to be on YouTube, and click the subscribe button, you won't miss a single episode. And now on to the show. Today we've got Kevin Chapman. Kevin, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Strider. Happy to be here. I will say, I need to say my name is Kevin G. Chapman, because there's another author out there in the world called Kevin Chapman. So I want to make sure I brand myself accordingly.
Actually, I'll take that as because I knew that. And I should have brought that right up to the front. And Kevin G. Chapman, thank you for joining us this morning. Afternoon, actually. Another one of those cases, and you are not exactly where I am on the West Coast. So we're bouncing that around your early evening there, right?
Pretty 5 o'clock. How about that? The workday is finished, and now I get to do fun stuff.
Excellent. Really good. Now, you are known specifically, I'll put that right out there, for your Mike Stoneman Thrillers, of which you've got quite a pile of them and doing really good. Now, those are also award winners too. I mean, not just books. You've got the Sybil Awards, Kindle Book Awards, Clue Awards. What else do you have out there?
Those are the big ones. I mean, very proud to have the
Amazon
the Clue
bestseller
Award for
list.
2.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. I mean, we all know that being an Amazon bestseller means a lot of different things.
It does. It does indeed. Anyway, thank you. And that means thank you for writing well too. We appreciate that good writing. Now, in your Mike Stoneman Thrillers, your protagonist is a New York police detective. Is that right?
Homicide detective in New York, yes.
Homicide detective. And how many books do you have out in that series?
There are currently 5 books in the Mike Stoneman Thrillers series. I'm working on book number 6 now, which will be out this fall. But the first 5 are currently available for sale. And then I went away from the series for a couple of years and have done a couple of standalone mysteries. And now I'm going to get back to the series this year.
Now, Dead Winter, is that one of the standalones?
Dead Winter was the first of the 2 standalones, and then the one that just came out, The Other Murder, is the second of those 2.
And you've got some novellas also, don't you?
I did a novella. It was interesting. I did a novella that was part of a serial for an online magazine. It was called In Detail magazine, and they did a one chapter a month for 10 months to put together the whole novella. It is called Ghost Creek, and 2 episodes in, unfortunately the online magazine went out of business. So the readers of the magazine never got a chance to finish the novella, but it's now available on my website. And I've putting it together so we can get it out as a reader magnet for me, as a free giveaway. I'm working on getting that finalized. But yeah, it was a very interesting experience writing a story that was going to be 10 chapters, but it would be 1 month in between reading each chapter. So you really had to revisit and get your audience back into the story every time and do a little recap of last time on Ghost Creek.
Sure.
But it was fun. I also did the audiobook version, and that's also out there as a freebie. So fun stuff.
Hey, that is fun. And what's your website so they can find you there?
The website is KevinGChapman.com. So
wow,
should
amazing.
be easy to find.
Okay. And don't forget to put the G in there. That's right.
You got to put the G in or you're not going to find me. Yeah.
So you've got all these books and things. Now, you are also an attorney, correct? How do you find time to write?
My day job, in my day job, I work as a lawyer. I'm a lawyer for the Wall Street Journal. So it's a very interesting,
different kind of thing,
environment in which to work. Yeah.
Are you a literary attorney then? Is that what you deal in?
No. Unfortunately, I'm not a First Amendment lawyer. I don't do libel cases. I'm actually an employment and labor lawyer. So I handle our unions and union negotiations and employment issues, which is very interesting.
Now, does that help you in your writing?
No doubt. Well, I think all lawyers to some extent are writers because we have to tell stories. We have to take facts and weave them into a narrative that will be persuasive for whoever it is that we're trying to persuade of something. And so, yeah, it does help. It teaches you how to put together a story in a compelling way. But it's very different, obviously, from writing fiction, where you get to make up the facts.
Yeah, you probably don't want to do that when it comes down to
No, we
legal
try not to
issues.
make up the facts.
Yeah. Yeah.
But certainly being a lawyer is a very interesting job, and it gives me a lot of fodder for things that I can then use my imagination on.
Mhm.
Sometimes there are little bits and pieces of things that happen to me in my professional life that I can then fictionalize for some of my stories.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, just pulling those things out of life and writing stories about them gives you another insight, just rather than the layman version of life, like me.
And there sometimes there are legal issues that come up. There are lawyers in some of these books, in addition to cops. There's district attorneys. In the book that I'm writing now, which is called Double Takedown, which is the sixth book in the Mike Stoneman series, there's a trial prep scene where the detectives are meeting with the district attorney and preparing for an upcoming trial. And then there's a trial scene where there's testimony going on. Mike Stoneman is on the witness stand. And those are a lot of fun for me to write as a lawyer. But the
Mhm.
problem is that testimony and the preparation for testimony can be really dull and slow and boring. So you have to take a little poetic license and condense things down into a shorter period of time and a shorter sequence of questions and answers in order to make it palatable for somebody who's reading it. But it's fun. It's really fun for me to think about how would a lawyer ask that question? How would the defense attorney cross-examine this witness and put that into a book? So that's a lot of fun.
And that artistic development of your subject matter that makes you a writer, an author that people want to read. Because yes, they want the fun parts of it. They don't want the sloggy how what it took to get there to those decisions. That's cool. So as a writer, then you what type of a writer are you? Are you a pantser? Do you do it just by seeing the pants writing, or do you have this pretty dictated pathway that you go, maybe because of what you are and do? How do you go about your writing
I am
method?
a compulsive. I'm a compulsive outliner. So I
Compulsive.
actually do the equivalent of storyboards. Yeah, I will have every scene in the book on a page where this is what's going to happen in this scene, and then this is going to be the next scene, and all the way through to the very end. I have to know where the story is going to finish before I can really start writing dialogue and detail about it. So I have a 30-page outline of the book written before I start writing the first line of dialogue.
And I would say
That's
undoubtedly
just
that is
me.
because of your background, so that you have all the data, you are ready, you're prepared, and then you make your case. And your case happens to be, read this book, it's good.
That has a lot to do with it, I'm sure. Now, when you sit down to write a scene, you are always kind of writing by the seat of your pants, in the sense of,
Mhm.
you know who the characters are, you know what's going to happen in the scene, but then you have to figure out what's the first thing the person says and does, and then what's the response from the other character, and then what's the next thing. It's so that process of writing the specific details of a scene, it's interesting because sometimes things happen in that scene that you didn't really think about.
Absolutely.
I knew two or three key things were going to happen, but in the middle of it, somebody cracked a joke, or somebody made a comment that was, taken the wrong way, or all of those little things that come up at the spur of the moment while you're doing the first draft are still spontaneous.
And the story tends to write itself at that point. It just develops and grows. And that makes it so
Well,
much fun.
you know it, yeah. You know where you're going. You just have to get there. So
Absolutely.
you have to make it happen, and you have to make it happen in a way that is interesting for to get from point A to point B, and don't get bogged down too much.
Keep
And
your
that for
attention.
that, I really give a lot of credit to. Well, yeah, but I tend to put too much detail into my drafts, and then I give it to my beta readers, and my beta readers tell me where it's you
Where it
gotta
got
speed this up.
slow.
This is too
Yeah.
slow. This is
Hmm.
boring. You gotta move. Yeah. And I really I give a lot of credit to my beta readers who who help me make the story better after I've done the first draft.
Absolutely. That's good. That's good stuff. Do you have special tools that you use as a writer? A method that you do that? And I know you've got your storyboards and things, but say, what do you use as a tool? Do you use a lot? You have beta readers. You said that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you go through a lot of different kinds of edits to do it? Obviously you have your final edits, your line edits and things, but how about through? Do you have your story overviews and things that you use, or do you have it pretty well situated already?
I tend to, well, first of all, I got my wife, and my wife Sharon is a tremendous resource for me because we kick around the ideas together and try to figure out what is going to be fun and what's going to make sense and what's going to be interesting. She's really good at the subplots, the character interactions, and the arc of the story within the story. And then when I do a first draft, she's the first one who reads it, and she tells me she gets the first line of demarcation for what worked and what didn't work. So then I do a rewrite, and then it goes to the beta readers, and that comes back to me, and then it eventually goes to my editor. So that's the process for me.
All right.
And at this point, 9 novels in, I'm pretty good at it by now, I hope.
It's got a pattern and it seems to work. That's good. Yeah. Now, you also do reviews of your own on your webpage. I've been there and I've seen it. And that's really neat where you go through other people's books. And I have found personally that when I do book reviews, it helps me in my writing also, because I see where other people could do a little shuffling and I make sure that I do that same in myself then and fix it up. So I like to see that on your
I
webpage.
agree with you. I agree with you 100%. 100%. You have to read other people's books. I read good books, published books. I mean, I love reading novels. There's a new Sarah Paretsky mystery coming out next at the end of this month. I'm dying to read that one. I read Michael Connelly's most recent book, which I love him. And then I do a lot of reading for other independent authors
Mhm.
where I read their books and do reviews for them. I do some beta reading for some of my author friends who give me their books as a beta reader, and I can really give them constructive criticism
Some
early
input.
on in the writing process. And you're right, all of that helps focus you on things that other people do well and things that other people or that in a draft sense don't do well. And that's all important to myself. And I think also writing a review helps you focus on what do people care about a book and what made it important or interesting or good for you when you wrote the review for it. So yeah, I like doing it. I wish I had more time to do it, but I agree. Reading is important.
It is. Um, Writers have a very tough time if they're not readers. You got to be a reader. So you know the beat, the timing, the flow, the way things work, and the way you expect it to come out because that's what you like to read. It's important.
I will say that other authors who write differently from the way I write really make me think about how I can improve things. I tend to
Yes.
be very dialogue oriented and very sort of visual in the descriptions of what's happening in a book. But I'll read some other novels where the author is really getting into the head of the character and describing for the reader what the character is thinking and feeling that then leads to then what the character is going to do. I tend not to do that, but I like it sometimes and I have a hard time with it. So reading other authors do that helps me say, I need to incorporate at least a little bit of that into my writing to make my writing better.
There are different methods of writing for sure, and different ways of getting a story across to the public. And it could be boring if you just read the same thing over and over and over, not just the same book, but the same type, the same genre, the same method. So I too like to hear, oh, that was different. I really enjoyed that. Maybe pick up little bits and pieces for my own. And sometimes it doesn't fit mine at all, but I still enjoy reading it. I like that. Now we're getting low on time already. It just goes so stinking fast. Um, your books will be available on DurhamPublishing.com, who's sponsoring this Author in the Headlights. On their book page, it'll be there, and it'll link to wherever they're sold. We
Excellent.
appreciate
Well, I always love to see independent booksellers out there hawking the merchandise. That is great. I'm a big supporter of bookshop.org, where you can go and order books that are then sourced through independent local bookstores, which is a wonderful thing.
All righty. Kevin, until next time, when your book comes out, your new one, let me know and we'll make sure we get that on our page also here. Thank you so much for sharing your early evening dinner time show with us today.
I totally appreciate it, Strider. Appreciate you doing these podcasts and helping independent authors get their word out there into the world.
Absolutely. And I enjoy it very much. So until next time, to the rest of you, appreciate you for being with us at Author in the Headlights, sponsored by DurhamandPublishing.com. And get back with us next week. I'll be here. Thank you, Kevin. And until next time.
Okay, thank you.
Sponsored by DurhamandPublishing.com.